Today I'm going to let you in on 9 secrets that military recruiters do not want you, as the applicant, to know about. For context, I was active duty for 13 years, reserves for 2. In that process, obviously, I worked with recruiters to enlist in the United States Marine Corps, but I was also a recruiter for 3 years while I was in the military. And not only that, but I was a recruiting station boss, the Staff NCOIC, and I was the Staff NCOIC of the year for my entire district while I was the boss. So I know a thing or two about recruiting duty, and we're going to dig in. We're going to lead right out the gate with we, meaning recruiters, hate our lives. Recruiters aren't going to tell you this, right? But the vast majority of people on recruiting duty for the military did not volunteer. In fact, at least in the Marine Corps, most of them were voluntold. We have this thing called the HIST list, which I don't know what it stands for, but basically they got voluntold. They got told, hey, you're going to be a recruiter or maybe a drill instructor. And then you're like, no, I don't want to be a drill instructor. I'll be a recruiter, whatever. But like most of us would have been very happy going on about our daily lives. For example, I tried out for MARSOC, Marine Special Operations Command, in 2012. I went to ASPOC, which is the Assessment, Selection, Preparation, and Orientation course, blew out my knee, DOR'd, meaning I dropped on request. It told me, hey, after 6 months has passed, if you're medically cleared, you can come back and try again. Within that 6 months, I got HISted for recruiting duty, got told you're going to be a recruiter, and by early 2013, I was on recruiting duty. I wanted to be a special forces operator, and instead I'm on recruiting duty. So it is what it is, right? So most recruiters cannot wait to get back to the fleet, meaning they're like normal freaking job, because most people did not join the military to be a recruiter. They joined the military to like kick indoors or see the world or do something cool, right? So just know that most recruiters didn't like sign up for this job. And so I don't know what that really matters to you, but like give them a little grace. Number 2 is that recruiters or MEPS or anything else in the process cannot tell how many times you have done drugs. They can't. Nobody knows if you smoked weed once, twice, or 400 times. The only person who knows how much marijuana you ingested is yourself. The only person who knows if you've ever tried any other drugs is yourself. Now, obviously, if you have a police record that says otherwise, like, you got caught with a pound of Mary Jane with intent to distribute, you can't really hide that. You got caught with cocaine, you can't really hide that. You got freaking track marks from heroin, you can't really hide that. But other than that, the only way anybody ever knows what drugs you did or didn't do is this. You tell them. And so just know that if you're going into the military, you should be honest. So, for example, I'm not saying you should be dishonest about what you tell recruiters, but if you genuinely don't know how many times you smoke pot, pick a number and stick to it. Because if you change your number a bunch, it's going to look like you're lying. So if you're like, man, I tried it a handful of times and then it really wasn't for me, like, cool. Maybe the number's 3. Maybe the number's 7. Maybe the number's 11. Maybe the number's 5. But just pick a number and then freaking stick to it until you die. Because if you say 7 one day and you say 60 the next day and you say 300 the next day, those are different level waivers you have to get to join the military. And the reality is nobody knows and it doesn't really matter as long as you stop smoking it and you don't smoke it in the military. Okay, so pick a freaking number that you believe to be somewhat accurate and just stick to it. And then don't change your answer and don't mess with your own contract by trying to because nobody knows. And if you don't even know, of course nobody's going to know. Number 3 is that they can't guarantee jobs. Even when they say they guarantee you a job, they can't. It just is what it is. Look, let me paint you this picture for you. So the way the Marine Corps does it is you say you want to be a Marine, we send you to MEPS. You go to MEPS, you take your ASVAB, you do your physical, you do your everything. You come back from MEPS, we see let's say you passed MEPS, you're in the delayed entry program, we see everything you're now qualified for, because now we know what jobs your ASVAB qualified for, whether or not you passed color vision, because yes, that has a lot to do with your jobs. Whether or not you have depth perception, because you can't drive a truck if you have no depth perception, right? Whether or not you pass the D-Lab if you took that, which allows for language and intel tests, right? So like you have all the tests. So now we know exactly what you're qualified for. And then we say, hey, here are the 7 different job fields that you're qualified for. And for reference, a field is like infantry. I don't know if you're going to be a sniper or a freaking machine gunner or a rifleman or a mortarman or a whatever, lad gunner, right? Because when you go to infantry school for the Marine Corps, at infantry school, they're going to pick you. So like if you're 110 pounds, you're probably not going to be a machine gunner. And if you're 190 pounds, you very well might be a machine gunner because they need someone who can actually carry the Ma-Deuce, like the 50 cal, right? Or the Mark 19. Like these are not light weapon systems, right? And so at your MOS school, you'll figure out which one, right? Another example is like aircraft maintenance. I don't know exactly what tech you're going to be in the aircraft maintenance field, but we can say, hey, you'll be aircraft maintenance. And then what aircraft frame you get, what level maintenance, like all of that will depend as your career goes on, and you kind of change it up, right? So that's how the Marine Corps does it. We see everything you're qualified for. We say, these are all the occupational fields you qualify for. Which ones do you want to submit? You say this one, this one, this one, and then we submit it. And by any luck, you get the first choice, right? The Army likes to say, we'll guarantee you a job. Check this out. Which job do you want? I want this job. And then they send you to MEPS. And then what if you wanted to be a truck driver, 88 Mike, I think they call it in the Army, and now you have no depth perception, so you don't qualify for it. Now, I don't actually know. I would imagine that qualification is the same, but I don't know the Army job qualifications. But let's say that means you're no longer eligible to be a truck driver. Well, they guaranteed you truck driver, but you're not qualified. So the guarantee is if you qualify, right? So that's why the Marine Corps says, let's see what you're qualified for and then talk jobs, because we want you to be a Marine first and a job second. And everyone else who sells jobs, they guarantee with the caveat that it depends on how you actually qualify. And here's the real kicker on all this, because people are going to come in here and they're going to say, the Army actually can guarantee and whatever, right? It's all in the verbiage, but here's the kicker. None of this is guaranteed if you get to job school and fail. If you don't make it through infantry school, they'll find another job. If you don't pass electronic school, they'll find another job. If you fail out of your MOS school, you'll end up somewhere else. Because you're already in the military at that point, you're past boot camp. They're not going to be like, oh, sorry, you can go back to high school, right? But that job's not guaranteed if you don't pass everything. You don't make all the qualifications and pass everything, right? I have seen people join the military. They have the secret clearance required to be intel or whatever, and then they get in trouble on their boot leave between boot camp and their MOS school or boot camp and their infantry school or whatever, and they lose the ability to have their security clearance. What are you going to do then? Right? Like you were qualified for everything. You got the job in ink before you went to boot camp. After boot camp, you go and maybe you get a DUI. Or maybe you didn't do anything, but there was something that came up in your background check that invalidates your ability to get that security clearance. You're not going to get that job now. It's going to change. So just know that no matter how guaranteed a job is, you still have, it's always guaranteed if you meet all the requirements and graduate. It is what it is. Right? So there's still going to be things that it depends on until you actually graduate that job school. Number 4 is that verbal promises are not binding, and they often have no control over that. So when a recruiter tells you, we're going to do everything we can to get you infantry, that doesn't mean you're going to be infantry. Because again, just like everything I said before, they don't always have that. And if, let's say you go to MEPS today, and the plan is that when you come back, as long as you're qualified, we're going to put you in for an infantry contract. Let's say at MEPS, let's say this is the summer before your senior year. So you're like one of the most gung-ho seniors right out the gate, and you're like, I want to be Marine Corps infantry. And you go to MEPS, you go to swear in, and let's say while there, something comes up that needs a waiver. I don't know if that's a legal issue. I don't know if that's a medical issue, whatever. You need a waiver. Let's say it takes 5 months to get your waiver approved, right? We can't assign you a job until the waiver's through because you're not actually in the delayed entry program. And what if during that time, every single infantry slot for that fiscal year filled up because everybody else wanted to be infantry? Now, this is all hypotheticals, but this is how it works. So then you finally get into the delayed entry program, and you've basically got 2 choices. You either wait a full year through the next fiscal year just to be infantry, or you go to boot camp after high school that next summer like you planned originally, but you pick a different job. It is what it is. Stuff happens, right? So just know that until it's in writing, it's just a could be, not a is. Number 5 is that recruiters have absolutely no say in what your life looks like after boot camp / MOS school, right? So let's say you make it all the way through MEPS, you get the date you want to go to boot camp, you get the job assigned that you want to get assigned, you're going to go to boot camp, maybe you go to infantry school or non-infantry school, depending on, the Marine Corps does that, but not every branch does the rifleman stuff. And then you go to MOS school, AIT, whatever they call it. And then after MOS school, like we have absolutely no say. Zero from there on. Even then, like MOS school, we might not know exactly what day you start MOS school. Like we have no control after the day you go to boot camp, right? Because what if boot camp, you get hurt and it takes you 3 weeks longer to graduate? Like there's all these variables that we can't control. So we can tell you what it should look like, You know, like, hey, you should graduate around this time. Then you probably go to this school. Then you'll probably end up here. But like, we're not going to know what date you started MLS school. We're not going to know if maybe when you get to MLS school, they're backed up. You have to sit awaiting to train for a couple weeks. I had to do that. It took me like 6 weeks. I sat in MAP platoon, Marines awaiting to train at Fort Leonard Wood for like 5 or 6 weeks before I got to start my actual job school, right? So they didn't know that. Nobody knows that. And so I say that just to say, from the day you go to boot camp, everything your recruiter told you is at best guesstimates. Now, obviously, what happens at boot camp, they know that. They can tell you what the 13 weeks looks like. They're not going to know who your drill instructors are. They're not going to know if you get hurt. They're not going to know if you pass swim call. They're not going to know if you pass range week. Like, all of that is on you, not them. Even the buddy system, right? Where you go to boot camp with a friend. Like, that means you'll be at boot camp together, but after that, who knows? Right? And so after MOS school, they might say, hey, there's a pretty good chance you get Okinawa, Japan if that's where you want to go. But they don't know what the needs of the Marine Corps are going to be at that time. That they may be totally full in Japan, and they may say, hey, do you want to go to California or Lejeune, right? Or if you're in the Army, it might be, do you want to go to Italy or Kentucky, right? Like, it really just depends. So just don't give your recruiters too much weight in what life after boot camp looks like. They don't control it. Number 6 is that if you did not go to a doctor, it does not exist, right? This is kind of like the drug thing. If you stubbed your toe and it was fine a week later and you never saw a doctor, don't bring it up. Don't self-diagnose. If you got winded once running upstairs, that's not asthma. It's not asthma unless you got given an inhaler for asthma for years or, whatever. Maybe it was even once. But like, if you didn't see a doctor and it didn't get diagnosed, don't open your fat mouth. Don't talk about like there's this like new trend in younger generations where it's like cool to have something wrong with you, right? Like even my kid's 9 and he's talking about growing pains and he's got like names for it. And I'm like, dude, you're just growing. You're fine. But like, it seems as though it's cool. It seems like a big one these days is like anxiety. Like everybody has some level of anxiety. Guess what? Everybody has some level of anxiety. It's called being nervous. You go into a new place, you're nervous. It's not social anxiety, that's being nervous, right? Like now, sure, some people have legitimate issues, but it is not cool when you're going to MEPS to talk about things that you may have joked with your friends about having or said like, I have a version of anxiety, but you never talk to a doctor, so it's not diagnosed. Because if you go to MEPS and you say, yeah, I have social anxiety, they're going to be like, oh, well, we need to see the documents. You're like, oh, I never talked to a doctor. Well, they're like, well, now we need you to talk to a doctor because you're saying you have this, and we need to see whether you actually have this or not. So if it's never been discussed with a doctor, you've never been officially diagnosed, do not bring it up. You are shooting yourself in the foot.
Most military finance books are trash. The one I wrote actually helps service members and vets. So scan the QR code, click the link down below in the description, and grab your free PDF before you waste another paycheck.
Number 7, bonuses. Sometimes they exist, sometimes they don't. Either way, your recruiter just might not tell you about it until after the fact. Like in the Marine Corps, we don't pitch bonuses. In fact, the 2 or 3 times I did give applicants bonuses, it was like on their way to boot camp, I'm like, hey, by the way, I signed you up for $10,000 bonus. Thanks for that thing, right? And they were like, oh, shoot, that's awesome, right? Or sometimes they just come with a job. Now, the Army likes to push bonuses, but it is what it is. Every branch operates a little bit differently. But again, here's the kicker on this. Bonuses are always contingent on you passing something, right? So like I got a small kicker when I joined the military because last minute I changed my MOS from infantry to motor T because it allowed me to go to boot camp like 4 months earlier and I wanted to go to boot camp and they were hurting for motor T guys. And so I got like a $10,000 bonus, right? And then that's taxed. So it's probably like $6,000, $7,000, something like that. But you don't get that until after you graduate job school. So it was contingent on me making it through job school. Had I not made it through job school, MOS school, I wouldn't have gotten that bonus. So like when you get the bonus paperwork, assuming you see it and you sign it, read it and know exactly what you have to do in order to actually get that and when you'll receive it. Because it's not going to be the day you go to boot camp. It'll be like after you graduate MOS school, it hits. And you want to know what all that paperwork reads as so you know, hey, if I didn't get it at this point, I can go ask about it. And then, yeah, like I said, the Army like practically bribes people with bonuses, but every branch is a little bit different. Just know that, again, if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And if it is in writing, you should know all of the requirements and contingencies and like when to expect it and read the actual paperwork that you're signing around the bonus and ask questions just to make sure you understand when's it going to hit, what do I have to do, what happens if I don't do this, whatever. Number 8 is that recruiters are not going to tell you how much time you're going to spend cleaning and maintaining things, right? Like, you are going to clean rifles more than you care to clean rifles if you shoot rifles. You are going to clean your room in field day weekly, right? Like, maybe not. It depends on the branch, right? I'm sure every branch is a little different, but you're going to have to clean your room a lot. You're going to have to maintain things a lot. You're going to have to clean stuff a lot. Like, you're going to have to clean your gear. You're going to have to clean your rifle. You're going to have to clean the common areas. You're going to maintain stuff. You're going to, like, that's just a part of the military, is upkeep. Now, to be fair, that's like a part of life and part of most jobs, but recruiters are not going to, like, tell you, hey, you're going to clean your rifle all the time. It is what it is. And really, like, cleaning your rifle is not that bad. It is what it is. But it's just not something that recruiters are going to go over the top about. And number 9 is that the scare tactics in the entire enlistment process are mostly just that, scare tactics. Now, they're going to tell you there's a, $10,000 or $15,000, whatever it is, fine, and felony charges if you lie about something at MEPS, or lie about something to your recruiter, or lie about something at boot camp, or whatever. Most of the time, that's just scare tactics, unless you do something egregious. So yeah, there are instances where people do get wrapped up in that, right? It's just like, you're not going to get wrapped up in a $10,000 fine if you said you smoked pot 7 times and then later you're like, wait, it might have been 6. Like, that ain't going to get you in trouble. Most of the time, you're not going to get in trouble. Now, if you show up to MEPS with a weapon, you might get in trouble. So, like, we had kids, this was common actually in Missouri. We'd have to, like, check all their bags before they went to MEPS, because every now and then someone would go through the metal detector and not realize they had ammo from their last hunting trip in their backpack, or maybe a pocket knife. And that was always a big thing, right? They would lose it. It is what it is, but it would be a nasty phone call, and, like, it's a federal building. You can't bring that stuff inside. And they're not messing around with that. But your recruiters are going to try every scare tactic in the world to make sure that you're honest with them before you go say something at MEPS to shoot yourself in the foot, and definitely before you go to boot camp and change your story there, which can actually get you kicked out of boot camp. But a lot of times, unless that's something like egregious that you're lying about, it is what it is. Like, we had an applicant once who got up to MEPS, swore in, and then after the fact, we realized he had been deported. And he had been deported and then came back legally, but, like, he didn't tell anyone. He didn't get in trouble for that. We just had to go get all the documents. You have applicants forget about medical stuff all the time, right? Now, if you're lying about stuff, like, intentionally, right? Like, maybe you have surgery scars from a very obvious surgery and you're trying to say you didn't have it, and then it comes up on the medical docs. But again, probably not going to get in trouble for that. Just lose your chance to join the military. So unless you're, like, lying about, things that really have the potential to mess with, like, federal security or whatever, or national security, you're probably not going to get in real trouble. But that doesn't mean you should lie about stuff, right? Like, talk to your recruiters. Your recruiter is the person you should be honest with, because your recruiter can tell you what does and doesn't matter, what is and isn't important, what to and not to bring up, right? They are the guy, girl in your corner to help you get through the enlistment process. Hopefully this helps. These are things a lot of recruiters don't want you to know, or maybe they even would like you to know, but they can't tell you, right? And so, the military now. Here's real world information about recruiting duty and what you can expect from recruiters, and even the fact that most of them are not thrilled to be on recruiting duty, but they're smiling and dialing and calling you about joining. They love, and don't get me wrong on that. They probably, most of them, love the military. Just not recruiting duty, right? The military is dope. I freaking loved being in the Marine Corps. It was amazing. Recruiting duty sometimes was amazing. Most of the time was kind of a drag. But that was not the military in my head. That was recruiting duty. And then I got back to the military and it was dope again, right? So, like, don't use that against him, like, oh, this guy's trying to get me in the military, but he doesn't even like it. No, he just doesn't like recruiting duty. He loves the military. That's why he's still here. That's why he's willing to go through recruiting duty to get back to what he was doing in the military, right? Anyway, hope this helps. Make sure you subscribe for more military information about joining, life in the military. And if you were a recruiter and I missed something, comment down below. Feel free to do so now.